KranicH versus Lifecoach.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Hearthstone World Championships Day number 1, match number 2 between KranicH from Korea and Lifecoach from Germany / the European region. Welcome back, everybody, from the desk. My name is Frode, and I'm joined by Amaz and Robert Wing from the Blizzard's community team for Hearthstone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're ready for a very good action time here. What's been the first impression starting off the Hearthstone World Championships here in California? Amaz, how you been doing so far?
Yeah, I've been doing great. I just watched the last series, and Taj took it really convincingly. I'm really glad that the only priest made it. So far, he needs to win one more to get out of the groups.
That's right, you're priest boy.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Great.
And now we're gonna see, hopefully another great set of series between KranicH and Lifecoach.
Gotcha. And Robert, your boy, Young Hunter, ended up losing that match. Did you die a little inside?
No, Taj obviously came in here talking a really big game. You know, Europe's been like, oh, we're the best region. We're just going to win everything. So first series, they win 3-0. That's really good for their case of being the strongest region. So it was very nice to see the convincing play from Taj and Patron. You know, it was a lot of people said, we won't see this deck.
That's right.
Obviously, we have.
Surprises from Tice, maybe coming out of his teammate Lifecoach as well. Let's talk about what was said before the match by KranicH. Some very strong words. We always kind of joke about how people they're saying things playfully, but it felt, half serious there where KranicH is like, I don't fear Lifecoach. Maybe in the end he's kind of joking that he should retire, but the point was still made that KranicH is very confident against one of the strongest technical players in the world. Do you have any follow-up to that, Amaz, based off of what you heard?
Well, he better be, because Lifecoach is a very strong player, right? He, along with Taj, won the ATLC. So I expect that Lifecoach is going to be super prepared for this tournament as well. And yeah, KranicH better be prepared.
All right, well, the game number 1 is about to begin. We have Hunter versus Druid to begin things off, and Lifecoach has definitely been exploring the Druid class a lot more often these days compared to what he used to play a lot of. Paladin used to play a lot of Handlock with the Warlock class. Meanwhile, KranicH, he's bringing a similar lineup to what Firebad did last year. He's playing Hunter, he's playing Warlock, he's playing Druid, I believe. And that's going to make for a very powerful set of classes. And very interesting card to start off. We see Bear Trap be included in Hunter. Amaz, you've played a lot of this style of Hunter. What's the benefit? What are some of the drawbacks of running this card and risks?
Well, the benefit of running Bear Trap is the first game, your opponent doesn't know what you're running, and sometimes they just assume it's like a freezing trap or like an explosive trap, like the normal traps, and then you suddenly get a 3-3, and you get a lot of tempo on the board, right? And of course, the downside is once you play that first game, your other teammates or your opponents rather will know that you have a Bear Trap and will play around that card instead.
It's true. Now, Robert, as a follow-up question as well, you've played this matchup a lot from the Hunter's perspective too. How do you feel about the state of this matchup these days, now that TGT's been out for a couple months?
I think as the Hunter player, you're really hoping to not see Wild Growth very early on. Darnassus Aspirin can be handled. You have tools to deal with that. But if you see that Wild Growth come out, and they can really quickly get to Keeper of the Grove, they can really quickly get to swipe Druid of the Claw, you're in a bad place. I also think it depends on exactly what traps you brought. When we talked about Bear Trap, I think Bear Trap, as you said, is kind of a one-off surprise tool, unless you're also running Explosive Trap, because then you force your opponent to try to guess. It just comes down to, is this Explosive, is this Bear Trap? I think this is a very good matchup for the Hunter. Obviously, Druid is just a very strong class and can win a lot of situations, but I think the Hunter has very equal chance. Yeah,
I think you bring up an excellent point, is being able to get ahead of the mana, or we like to say using the most powerful tempo plays. Druid wants to leverage cards like Wild Growth really early on to get that mana crystal and hit their layer threats, like you said, Druid of the Claw. But yet Hunter has good answers to that. They have cards like Freezing Trap. They have cards like Hunter's Mark, which can shut down the biggest threats in the world. You could have a taunt minion with 1,000 health, and Hunter's Mark will still shut it down for 0 mana. So it doesn't really matter how big of a board you end up building. That card can siege you some amazing tempo if KranicH finds an opportunity to use it effectively.
Especially because as the Druid, you're usually in the earlier turns, you're just playing one big threat per turn, and it's usually like a beefier threat. So Hunter's Mark is actually a huge swing card in this matchup, especially in conjunction with something like Knife Juggler and to Unleash the Hound. You can just clear the board really quickly and get rid of, as you said, Druid of the Claw.
Actually,
go ahead.
But I actually like our Lifecoach's position here, because usually as a Druid, you have to skip your first 2 turns, ramping up to Wild Growth or stuff like that. But now he actually has a board, and yeah, usually Hunters just play minions instead of ramping up, and then Druids can't really keep off the board. but now Lifecoach feels pretty safe to just Wild Growth here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go through Lifecoach's mind. You know, what if this is a Hunter, which I want to activate Freezing Trap early, then I have minions to play on curve. Not only would I be able to benefit by killing off the trap very quickly with smaller minions, I do have minions to play after turn 2, even if I didn't Wild Growth. So there's a lot of choices, and as such, Lifecoach ended up going to the rope, which is famously associated with Lifecoach's brand as a player. But that's also why he's so meticulous and calculating. He's such a hard opponent to deal with, because if Lifecoach plays fast, then oh my goodness, I don't know what he has anymore.
Right. He always says that, you know, he uses the whole turn, not because of just that turn, where he's figuring out like what's gonna happen 4 turns from now and stuff.
That's right.
Like that. Yeah.
So while this might seem slow, there's a lot of really powerful implications with these decisions, because what you build on this foundation, because of how tempo drives this matchup.
I like Lifecoach's decision to turn 1 put out the saplings as well,
Yeah.
because that's actually buying him extra health here, as KranicH is choosing to use the Mad Scientist to actually clear those off the board, because obviously cards like Savage Roar can make those 1/1s suddenly do a lot more damage. So Lifecoach has really kind of bought himself in essence 4 extra health, is what it looks like is going to happen here. So.
Yeah, Lifecoach is obviously going to be a little bit suspicious here. I mean, why did KranicH play a trap into his 1/1 sapling on the board, right? So it's probably not a freezing trap. He probably doesn't want to attack the face, because, I mean, you wouldn't play Explosive Trap in this position either, right? So hopefully Lifecoach's problem-solving skills can, kind of picture out that, oh, it is indeed a Bear Trap or a Snake Trap.
Yeah, Snake Trap seems the most likely, given that the easy trade is the 1/1 and the 2/1, just like you mentioned. Lifecoach also might end up just not doing too much in this position, but what he does.
Lifecoach not caught off guard here, and high-level play, trap psychology is actually a big deal here, because when you're playing on ladder, you might run into an opponent and you're like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is freezing trap, that's what this is telegraphing, but it almost works kind of the opposite way sometimes in high-level play.
Also, I believe a second trap was activated.
Yeah.
And he attacked with the 1/1 to the face directly, which signifies that this should be a Snake Trap as well.
This should be a Snake Trap, or it could be a Snipe, I guess.
It could be a Snipe! That Shaded Max Randomness or Drew the Claw won't know it hit him. If it plays it in charge mode, that is.
So that sequence was really, really good for Lifecoach.
Yeah, which again is going to make KranicH's life difficult, but he still has some really powerful plays available to him in the following turns.
But this is a little bit awkward. The Knife Juggler does start in a lot of pressure, and if you want to kill the Knife Juggler in this position as Lifecoach, you have to hit it with something, and it will activate the Snake Trap.
That's right. Now, the problem with Snake Trap 2 is that because those snakes are summoned, you get those activations from the Knife Juggler. It can kill the 1/1 as it's attacking.
Right.
Yeah, it always makes for a funny image in my head of the Knife Juggler, like this sapling's like coming speeding, and the Knife Juggler just whoosh, 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 like throws out the knives. Yeah.
It is. And then, of course, you try to dodge like the Matrix, but that's not always the case. It's like the beginning of the Matrix when Neo keeps getting hit with everything. At least that's what my minions experience.
Good movie. Good movie. Great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one of those things where when you're playing on ladder, they want to get rid of the Knife Juggler. It's a high priority target. Unfortunately, because Lifecoach pretty much knows that it's a Snake Trap here, he's just going to make a Druid of the Claw, and obviously Snake Trap is.
Now, on the follow-up play, KranicH does have some very interesting choices available to him. It depends on how he wants to leverage cards like Hunter's Mark.
Right.
And how he wants to really push this Snake Trap to its limits, because now he knows that Lifecoach doesn't want to attack into the board at all.
He also knows that Lifecoach doesn't have a Wrath or something, to deal with the Knife Juggler, or like a Keeper or something like that.
Sure.
So KranicH could go really greedy here, or like really brave, and just Hunter's Mark the Druid of the Claw and just play a minion. Hopefully the Juggler hits that.
Yeah, I think he's going for it.
Going for it. Oh man.
This is, sometimes you just got to be brave. KranicH said in the beginning that he was a far cuter gamer than Lifecoach, and he believes in himself, and doesn't quite pay off. Probably gonna have to put the Knife Juggler into that, but.
Or he could just not attack as well.
Yeah, you can put the onus onto the Druid of the Claw to make decisions, but it also
you guys are right. Yeah, that is the better play.
He knows that his opponent probably didn't have Keep with the Grove, like Amaz mentioned too, and that is one drawback of this play. It's you risk the idea if he can silence that Hunter's Mark and restore it back to a 4/6 minion.
Right.
They want
But then
taunt
you lose
though.
taunt.
That's important.
Yeah.
is important. Although, obviously, since KranicH is playing that slower, more mid-range oriented Hunter, it's not necessarily the end of the world.
Yeah. Taunt does protect the face, which is very important in this matchup.
Yeah. It's very important in most matchups to have not 0 HP. So this is,
yes, that is the primary win condition for now, at least. Well, Lifecoach here is still under some pressure. So what are some of the options that we're exploring here, Maz?
Not really good options here. 6 for 6 mana, he can utilize Swipe maybe to clear these snakes, but then he will have to take the snake trap damage, which Lifecoach decides to use it now. Let's see if this pair does the Matrix.
Oh my goodness, is he the one? Wait, no way.
Really?
Bears aren't super agile. This is kind of...
Oh my gosh!
That is...
He's the one.
He's the one.
Lifecoach doesn't see the game the way we see the game. Everything is just green lines of code on the screen right now.
He just sees knife juggles and wild growths.
And hopefully this is where the series stops for him and there's no 2 other movies, because if it goes on from that point on, then it might not be a good ending for Lifecoach. But thankfully, it's the first game. Anything could happen still from the series. Even though we just saw that Druid the Claw survive, Hunter still does have some comeback mechanics. Web Spinner can always pull up some really nasty things, not to mention that he can combine that with Houndmaster to have a really strong board.
I also don't think KranicH here, I mean, yeah, KranicH would like to be farther ahead in damaging Lifecoach at this point, but Lifecoach's hand is not particularly great either. You have a Savage Roar, which doesn't really do much at the moment.
One card could change that all, though.
One card could change that. Houndmaster obviously buffing that Web Spinner up to a 3-3, making a lot more intimidating, and it still drops a random beast, so that Web Spinner's in a good spot and can just start pushing pressure.
It's a really strong play on turn 5. You put 7 power and 6 health on the board. But Lifecoach, on the other hand, drew a Shredder, so he can actually utilize all his mana. So that's pretty good.
He can effectively do the same thing. By next turn, he'll have a 4-3 and a 3-3 as well.
Yeah, so
and both of them are sticky.
Kind of make a Houndmaster and a Web Spinner yourself, too.
Sure.
I still feel like KranicH is at the moment in a little bit of a better spot, but Lifecoach probably wants to start looking for like that Ancient of Lore, see if he can grab that, kind of get some more cards. He's got the Savage Roar, just kind of needs to get that Force of Nature now.
Right. KranicH has a much more aggressive hand.
Right.
Because Lifecoach's Darnassus Aspirant loses significant power as the game goes on. It is a minion that could benefit off of triggering Freezing Trap if the game develops at that point, but KranicH has follow-up with the Web Spinner as well, so any beast that he gets off, he can also use that for Kill Command, so it doesn't really feel like Haunted Creeper has to stay in the hand. One of the drawbacks of Kill Command is, you want to get that full damage, and if you don't have a beast in hand, you won't get the full synergy.
Oh, wow.
I like this. This was a very important turn for KranicH. He basically had to make a decision on whether or not he was going to trade. That Shade he obviously can't get to. The Shredder's going to require 2 different sources of damage to get rid of it, and he just, he has the Kill Command in hand. Obviously, Haunted Creeper wasn't necessarily what he wanted, and yeah, Lifecoach.
Wildgrove is a pretty bad draw here.
No, that's not what you want to see.
Not an extra option at all.
Very low impact.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's at 12 HP like you were mentioning, so this is a very, very tough situation because KranicH effectively has 10 damage next turn no matter what. He's got a Beast Kill Command plus the Eagle Horn Bow and the Hero Power, and that's going to set Lifecoach very, very low to potentially just die to the Hunter Hero Power even if he clears the board.
So right now, what Lifecoach needs to hope for is like a taunt minion off the Shredder, or maybe a Vitality Totem.
Dude, you underestimate.
We thought it's the same thing.
Yeah, but Victor the Vitality Totem is not to be underestimated.
That's true.
And I like the fact that, as I was saying, KranicH took the more aggressive approach on that last turn because you look at the Web Spinner and you're like, all right, I could try to play this for value, try to play this for the long game. But when you're playing against the Druid, you understand that the Druid, the longer the game goes, the Druid's still in a fine spot. He can heal up, he can get to its combo, you can just die. Whereas the Hunter, you have a window where you have to close out the game. And I mean, you're forcing Lifecoach to trade, so you're still going to get the Beast off of the Web Spinner. And that's exactly what happens here. Ooh, Bloodbend Raptor is not a Vitality Totem. Fun fact.
It is not. However, with this play, Lifecoach still sets up an opportunity to draw Force of Nature. And with those 2 cards plus the 2 minions on board, that would be lethal. So if there's an opportunity for him to potentially pull the rug from underneath KranicH, and KranicH is not suspecting of potentially dying, which he will always calculate. With Druid being that far into the mana curve, you always have to suspect those 2 cards to kill you.
I think this is a very interesting turn. This is another interesting turn for KranicH because he has these options where on 7 mana you could Hero Power, you could Web Spinner, or not Web Spinner, you can Haunted Creeper, and then you could Kill Command. That puts out a lot of damage. The Haunted Creeper is difficult to remove, going to require multiple sources, and really keep Lifecoach from pressing what his agenda is. But that Oasis Snapjaw is also really big. 7 health is difficult to get off the board.
And it's pretty good against the Yeah. And it's pretty good against the sport too. I mean, 2 attack is perfect. Sometimes you don't need any more than that.
This is a great play from KranicH because no matter what he does, actually he can still get Force of Nature.
Combo, yeah.
So even though it's not Force of Nature, it might even be the enabler.
Are you calling this? Are you calling this, Dan? Is he
I'm
gonna
saying
draw
it's
it?
Force of
Is he
Nature.
gonna draw it? No, it's Shade.
No,
Okay.
It's not.
But you know, one thing that was really good about KranicH's play is no matter what he did to the board, unless he's willing to give up kill command, he would still lose to a Force of Nature Savage Roar. And as such, if Lifecoach doesn't Savage Roar and clear the minion here, that is lethal for KranicH.
Right.
This is kind of an interesting psychology look into the Lifecoach. It's, you know, you want that Savage Roar. That's going to help you close out that game if you get that Force of Nature next turn. But, you know, what do you think those 3 cards in KranicH's hands are? Like, probably damage.
Yeah, you have to expect the kill command at least, right? But the thing is, if you use the Savage Roar right now, then when are you going to kill the Hunter? You're going to give him like 1 more turn or 2 more turns.
That hero
even.
power's coming in every turn.
Right.
So.
You just...
So then you'd be relegated to hoping you draw a heal of some sort, because you're at this life stage where it doesn't even matter if you have taunts, you might just have direct damage to go past the taunts. Lifecoach recognizes that if he has 1 single kill command, he's dead, but he's going to hope that KranicH doesn't have it. Unfortunately for our German player, though, KranicH does have this kill command. He's going to seal game number 1.
You have to play to win. That's what Lifecoach did here. He realized he needed that Savage Roar, like Amaz said. You have to be able to put that damage in there to get the Hunter. And you know, KranicH played this well. He understood when to turn aggressive. He's going to end up taking game 1 here against Lifecoach.
That's right. Very strong start for our very confident Korean player, and that's going to be a 1-0 lead. However, this is sort of the outcome that we've expected to happen, right? We weren't saying that Hunter was a bad matchup for Druid. In fact, that was probably one of its best.
I mean, Hunter for KranicH, as you can see from the matchups here, is pretty good against Lifecoach's lineup anyways.
Yes.
So Lifecoach losing to Hunter isn't the worst thing that can happen for him. He still has his other decks, and KranicH still has his Druid and Warlock. So a lot of mirrors potentially that Lifecoach feels very confident in.
2 things stand out to me a lot. The first is what we mentioned earlier, that KranicH does have a lineup that's very powerful and standard, similar to last year's lineup. With the exception, of course, we don't know the Warlock being. The second thing is that Lifecoach is completely different than Tice, his teammate. And both these guys practice with each other a lot. They're on the same team. They've traveled together to almost every event for the past 1.5 years. And yet they've picked 6 different classes. What's that all about, Robert?
I mean, obviously, you know, you can be really close friends with someone and respect their opinions, but at the end of the day, you're coming to the Hearthstone World Championship. This is it. This is the big event. You have to go with your gut. You have to go with what you think gets you the win, and I like the fact that they both have very different styles at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right. So as we get ready for our second game to see if Lifecoach can turn it around, you heard some strong words from KranicH at the very beginning and his thoughts on Lifecoach. Let's hear what he had to say also about strong competition in general, not just his opponent.
The reason why I'm playing this tournament is that I just really like the competition. I just feel really happy when I win against strong players. And that's why I just keep playing Hearthstone and try to qualify to this event.
I like being strong opponents too. In fact, that's what I consider every one of my opponents, so I make myself feel better when I'm getting the victory that 1 every 3 days. So I think KranicH is off to a great start, feeling very good so far. How are you guys feeling about KranicH's play so far?
So far, it's been really good. It's been like he realizes when to go aggressive, when to, you know, establish the board. So yeah, I'm impressed.
Okay, now that we evaluate the classes as well, I do want to ask you a question to either of you. I'm just going to throw this out there. We've seen Warlock a lot, but we've seen players really favor Handlock prior to the Patron Warrior being changed a little bit. How has the dynamic shifted from your perspective, Amaz, from the Warlock class?
Well, Warlock can actually play Zoo now because Warsong Commander is just no longer clears the whole board with the Patron, right? So yeah, KranicH right now, he's going to bring the Demon Zoo back. And Lifecoach is going to be a Control Warrior, so it's going to be an interesting matchup because I talk with a lot of pros, and you know, it kind of goes either way. Some people think Zoo is better in this matchup, some people think Control Warrior is really good, but when it comes down to it, it really depends on whether the Warrior draws the Fire War Axe, right?
Yes, that's true. I do apologize before. I did say that Tyson Lifecoach played 6 different classes. What I meant was 6 different styles. The Warriors do differentiate each other. There's one more of Patron style, and then there's one that's completely defensive, and you play Control Warrior. And Lifecoach here is going to immediately pass, seeing that he does have early game removal options, which will be very important, but he doesn't have some weapons to remove these early Flame Imps, which will do so much damage if it gets out of control.
Yeah, I think back to your question about handlock, though. I think it's interesting to point out that handlock was very much a popular deck because of what it could do against the Patron Warrior, which was considered at the time to be the strongest deck in the meta. Whereas now, a lot of matchups are very bad for it. With Druid being such a popular class, like, handlock really does not want to play against Druid. Seeker Paladin is another one that I'm sure a lot of players were expecting to see more of. And Seeker Paladin actually just has a great matchup against handlock because of Divine Shield, Redemption, Avenge, Mysterious Challenger coming down on turn 6. So it'll be interesting to see if more players as this tournament go on are favoring kind of that mid-range Demon Lock kind of handlock, or if they're just going straight for Zoo as KranicH is.
I personally am really glad that Zoo is back.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that in a long time when Patron was so dominant.
Well, Tice, Lifecoach's teammate who just won a previous series, was using the Zoo deck prior to this tournament in a couple of events. So it is starting to make that slow transition into relevancy that people are aware of these days. However, one thing to note is that Warrior's also gotten much better too. You saw Bash, for example, being an early removal option. That does give it some fighting spirit in the early game, so that way if you don't draw your weapons, you're not as much in trouble as you used to be in the past.
Right, and it's important to note for people who maybe haven't seen Zoo in a competitive tournament in a while, the win condition for Zoo is to very early on get control of the board with sticky minions and just kind of overrun the opponent until they don't have answers for the board. Then you finish them off with something like a Doomguard. If you're running the heavier variant, you might Void Collar into Mal'Ganis. There are a lot of very important pieces that help you seal out the game, but the name of the game is still board control early on. Very similar to mid-range Hunter.
Well, Zoo nowadays can be classified as a mid-range deck based off the way it curves, based off the way it plays its style, where very early you board control, but then you push for tempo in the late game. And those cards like Void Collar are the beneficiaries of that, right? You can get those demons out, which are normally incredibly expensive, and get out for really cheap. Now, this is a really sticky board, like you mentioned, but it's not also very threatening, and this gives some time for Lifecoach to be able to start putting out threats, which can contest it, because 4 power for 3 minions is not a very strong amount of attack coming your way.
Now, that said, Control Warrior tends to, aside from the weapons, have a lot of single-target removal spells, which is obviously not super strong against a class or a deck like Zoo, where you just have, Imp Gang Boss is making more minions, Haunted Creeper is leaving minions behind, so it's kind of interesting. They both have kind of edges against each other, and then cards like, I think, Power Overwhelming can be, the swing cards that help them get through stuff like Sludge Belcher, get through all that extra HP. Defender of Argus is another really big card, and KranicH getting that second Haunted Creeper last turn and being able to just drop 2 Haunted Creepers as opposed to a Haunted Creeper and a life tap, so much bigger to me, I think.
Right. Now that KranicH has the perfect mana usage of Power Overwhelming and Defender of Argus, or Implosion, however, it's one thing to consider of how far you want to extend into the board, with Brawl being a possibility.
Well, you don't want to use Implosion because you don't have enough space for all the creatures that are going to go down. I mean, you're assuming yourself you're going to roll 4, right?
Yeah, assuming you roll 4.
Right.
I like this play a lot. He's got a very big board. Implosion has the ability to generate a lot of minions, so maybe he saves that for after this turn if he doesn't see Brawl and a minion comes down. Lifecoach kind of needs to start finding a Brawl. This is a matchup that has existed very beginning of Hearthstone. Control Warrior versus Zoo, and Brawl is such a big part of this matchup and remains so even today.
Right, and I mean, it's past the weapon point, right?
Right.
Just look at Lifecoach. He's like in excruciating pain. Like, where are my weapons for the first 6 turns?
He's definitely rocking the not like this, as some call it.
Well, for now, he's not like he's out of options either. In fact, Shield Maiden does give him some more time, and that's something that is really valuable because outside of those Doom Guards, Zoo doesn't really have that explosiveness. If you haven't watched since the end of last year's BlizzCon, for example, Zoo still had the ability to kill from the hand very quickly with Soulfire and a few other cards. But these days, Zoo is much more board-centric, and therefore, if you can't kill your opponent with the minions on board, say you have no minions at all, how do you end the game if Warrior's at 2 health? It's like, you can't Implosion the face.
No, and it's funny because the original pre-Zoo, there was the aggro Warlock deck, which was just Arcane Golems, it was just Leroy's, Soulfires, Power Overwhelming's damage.
Yep.
And as you pointed out, they've kind of trimmed away a lot of that in favor of having more consistent boards and being able to battle for that. Ooh, Dr. Boom is a pretty good pickup there.
That's pretty nasty considering...
Do you Implosion? I mean, you wouldn't have enough space when you roll the 4, but still.
Yes.
Well, if you roll the 4, it doesn't matter anyways, right? Because you would have sacrificed the 1 more. So yeah, you do Implosion first here.
You just roll the 4. Just...
It matters if he
No,
gets
it's actually
extra
better.
game in.
Yeah, he takes extra damage to the
Right.
face, so that's actually better to implosion there first.
Now this, if nothing gets destroyed, and even if he would have to lose 3 minions to get full effect off of Dr. Boom next turn, so this is kind of a
Okay.
the problem of being too wealthy for KranicH.
Okay. Anti-synergy of Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
It is a significant problem though, because now Lifecoach board can never beat. You can't have more than 7 minions. Therefore, if I set up death,
Despite going to the Haunted Creeper here would be pretty sweet. Because the next turn you will hit the Imp-Gang boss, and the Imp-Gang boss doesn't summon another 1/1 as well.
Right.
And I guess the weakness of Zoo is that you can't kill your own creatures. Your board state is always going to be, you know, similar
can.
if you have your own minions.
yeah, you can implosion your own minion.
Power
But then you-
overwhelming.
Oh, you could.
Power,
Okay,
power
yeah, true.
overwhelming. And then
Okay.
Void Terror technically kills minions, but you need
You
space
need
to
space
do
to
it.
play,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's also worth noting that as much as KranicH has dominated his board early on, Lifecoach is at 24 health.
Right.
And that's the power of Control Warrior.
He's going to life tap, most likely.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be the turn 7 book.
Pretty good draw.
Justicar
as well.
Trueheart on 8 mana means that you can play Justicar Trueheart and then just... It's important to know because this is a real shifting point for Lifecoach.
Yep.
Because once he's generating 4 armor per turn for 2 mana, the job of the Boom can help with that. Dr. Boom is notorious for doing 4 damages.
While we're talking about the fact that Lifecoach has drawn Justicar Trueheart, it gives him options to really set up the armor for the following turns. So he's now going to have 4 armor, and he's going to also force
Heart usually
it's like
very
Doomsayer.
frail. Just comes down, activates, and then dies.
Trueheart than like voice acting. Like what's the sound that it
I don't
says?
know, we're gonna
Hear from the spectator
Trust the
mode, though.
Maz for
Right.
the
Yeah.
Jeoparino questions.
Indeed.
Oh, and I think Void Caller is being offered up as the sacrificial lamb.
Out of range from cleanly removing Dr. Boom. That is really inconvenient.
That is.
And he armor very easily.
Right.
So tank up is great, but it's still not enough.
On the
Yeah.
other hand, KranicH's hand is not very good at this point. Double Void Caller.
Speak to me.
The Owl is
Void
definitely
Terror,
pretty
rather.
good, though.
Yeah. The Void Caller into a Mal'Ganis.
Sure.
Does have a Doom
Sure.
Guard. He's not really pressing anything in life.
I wonder if Lifecoach is going to go aggressive with the Justicar and shield slam Dr. Boom twice and hit the face.
Whoa.
And that means KranicH does have an answer to that Acolyte, which is something Lifecoach won't like to see. Goodness.
Yeah.
That's
Really,
a real
really
big
good, yeah.
threat. He can also squeeze in a life tap in case his plays get better.
There's the Void Caller, but
Right.
probably just going to end up summoning out a Void Terror, assuming it even gets traded in.
He might end up dying to a Dr. Boom, or not Dr. Boom, sorry, a
Doom
Doom
Guard.
Guard.
Right.
And that means Lifecoach hypothetically feels like he has to do something, but does he? If he tanks up, does he still? Sometimes Warriors are replacing the Alex Straza with Ysera,
Okay.
and that's a funny way to interact because then that might be the thing that keeps Lifecoach safe in this position.
It's always a reflection on what you expect, and very much reminiscent to me of Firebats last year. He's got that Zoo, he's got that Hunter,
That's right.
and he is just trucking down these Lifecoach's decks.
And
Wow.
if anything, I mean, if history is any indication, which is the only player so far to do it.
Yeah, consistency in you know, his skills in deck building brought him to this position. So he
3 times, a class that's known to be very consistent. In fact, it's so it's going to be very challenging for Lifecoach to overcome that.
yeah, especially because I predict that Lifecoach is going to bring Handlock. He always brings Handlock. Start with the Druid versus Warrior.
It's stressful for Lifecoach. He looks a little overwhelmed at the moment. You can look at
Yeah.
him take engaged just yet. KranicH does have that Darnassus Aspirin and the Innervate. However, Savage Roar is not what he really wants to look at early game.
It's always been a powerful deck. We've always seen it in tournament. Obviously, it has the ability to win with consistent to play because you have so many options. You have the Wild Growth, you have the Innervate.
Well, he's got 3 ramp.
There is an idea that turns you to draw into something like a Shredder, Druid of the Claw. He can find something, but right now, I mean, he can ramp up his mana.
Yeah.
That's what he has.
Ramp so hard.
360 windmill dunk of ramp is what is what KranicH's hand is.
On the other side, Lifecoach should be pretty happy to see that.
Point because prior to the grand tournament, you didn't need to really try to find a for that Death Spite, but now you kind of need that Fiery War Axe to deal with the Darnassus Aspirin.
The good news is KranicH found the early game ramp, and this is the time you do want to draw your ramp. Wild Growth in the middle stages of the game is not very powerful, and because he sees a ramp, he's going to be like, oh, that stinks. But if no minions follow up, that gives him time to stall, and Warrior does get really...
He's looking at, well, actually next turn he'd be on 4 mana, so it'd be kind of awkward to innervate out the Druid of the Claw.
Exactly. A 4 mana drop or a 6 mana drop to innervate would be perfect for KranicH.
It's still awkward, though. The Grove is like okay, but it's like it's something to play. Ball is a possibility. However, you do know that if he plays Execute and removes that minion very easily, then you're back in the same spot. You have minions that you don't want to do. Do you even Wild
another card in your deck? And yeah, it really pays off. Cycle more cards with so much mana.
So Lifecoach obviously has more than enough means to remove the Druid of the Claw. It's just kind of a matter for him of like finding out what the best way is. There's Bash. He could hit with the second charge of the Fiery War Axe. With another card, so
there's some mana efficiency with Cruel Taskmaster though. Shield Slam interact with the mid stages of the game. It's like, what does the opponent indicate when he has to innervate Druid of the Claw on 4? So it's like, do I
attack Druid of the Claw here and actually take it out that way? Definitely use.
So he's got board now, which is usually not something the Control Warrior has against the Druid. KranicH's hand, let's see what this draw is, but yeah.
Oh no!
He is drawn into pretty much just ramp and combo pieces, and he had the one Druid of the Claw. And it might just be time for Keeper of the Grove to come down and get rid of that Cruel Taskmaster. Yep, put a body on the board.
Really developing anything. That's much better for Lifecoach than it is for card at 7 mana. Then he can't even play that. Well,
okay, that's
I mean,
that's a pretty good card to draw.
Great. That.
Although one thing that you hit the and the second is if you play Shield Slam, you actually don't do anything the rest of your turn.
Yeah.
Which you might be okay with because the game goes on in your favor. Because you do want minions on the board, but Emperor Thorsten's one of the worst you can leave up.
Cards in hand. He hasn't really been although, if you're thinking about it, if you're sitting in there and you're thinking, why hasn't he been playing things earlier? You have to assume that they're either ramp cards or they're combo pieces, right?
Sure.
So maybe that actually factors in too. How cheap do you want to let it
That way, if the board gets too crazy, not only will you be able to kill Emperor Thorsten, And I like that Lifecoach was thinking about this pass. Like, you float 3 mana, then Shield Maiden still gets more awkward to play as a Terran. Growth is still useless, and he's drawn that since turn 1.
He needs to find more threats, and second, the Wrath might be the way to do it after.
This is definitely not something you want to do as a Druid player, but as you said, you just find the threats, keep the board clear.
Well, the nice thing.
You want to have your Sylvanas stick around because it represents more off your hand.
That's a good point.
It would be really good because KranicH does have a Keeper of the Grove on his over Emperor.
But what about the allure of just an ever-cheapening Grom Hellscream? Some now of Emperor.
Yeah, you could. Or you can also play for 8 mana, that's fine.
I mean, that's also fine.
8 mana card, 8 mana 4/9 charge.
I mean, I guess if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I like to see how Chief fights Persine. This is, he knows what he's doing. It's time to go face now. Control Warrior on the... He just has it. Like, he had the Druid of the Claw at one point, and yeah, just spells. And that's actually, you know, as much as we talk about Druid being a really powerful class and everybody kind of bringing it with them, sometimes you just draw all spells.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of the engine go, which is the minions, then Druid just gets stuck. Look, KranicH is at 9 mana. And swipe to clear the entire board. If he just wants to swipe and then use Savage Roar or use a minion to clear, like, all these things are not very desirable. Yes.
This is I used to have this this argument with Kit Kats. This is kind of showing. There's Druid of the Claw.
The late game is not necessarily that bad.
Well, hey, it's
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, the minions are coming now at least.
Of course. You're going to eventually run out of spell. Very easy trades for Lifecoach, and his board is ever expanding.
Yeah. This big game hunter trade was really, really good for Lifecoach.
That's right.
The second Sludge Belcher too. I mean, at this point, Lifecoach, unless KranicH just gets something crazy off the Ancient of Lore, Lifecoach can pretty much just focus on doing
It would have to be even more wild, like Naturalize or Mulch, in order to, like...
The Lifecoach's card, so...
Yep, 2 Savage Roars, but 0 chances to win this game. KranicH does not have an opportunity.
He's not dead yet.
Not dead yet, but and again, how long can he hold on for? Because Lifecoach could easily draw into it twice over with that.
Never mind, I lied. He's dead.
He is dead.
No, if he uses Savage Roar here, he's technically not dead. He can kill the... Lifecoach is actually 1 damage off lethal.
Unless Acolyte picks it up. It's the game, and
like I
Lifecoach...
said, guys, like I said, I knew he was going to get the axe.
Alright.
Yeah, easy game. Get the axe.
Control Warrior defeats the Druid, and that is a rare choice of Lifecoach to go for the Warrior immediately. Realize you want to keep onto the decks that you're going to lose with anyways if the series is over, because you might reveal too much information to your opponent.
Sure.
The more you lose, the more information is revealed by
Again, it's a very swingy matchup.
But like Frodan said, if like Warlock.
Right, because as you said, you know, you very much expect him to bring the Handlock deck, so concealing that is actually kind of a big deal.
That's right. Now, Druid versus Druid, there's a lot of feedback from players saying that a lot is the He keeps Emperor Thorson, which I do like. It is another way you can seize back tempo, one of the few comeback cards. KranicH keeps his Innervate and the Pilot Shredder, so he has a turn 2 play, but does he hit anything else to follow it up? And he does. Shade of Now. It's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Shade, Wild Growth next turn, turn 3 Shredder.
It's the classic Innervate versus Wild Growth opening. Wild Growth, because you do have that minion swinging in for 4 damage. 16 damage, as opposed to ramping up mana that
Ooh.
doesn't do anything.
The Fire Lord in Lifecoach's hand. That's a that's a card we used to see a lot more in Druid, in mid-range Druid, but these days it's kind of fallen off because it's a little bit slow. Dies to Big Game Hunter, which is a
I mean, one thing that's really interesting to note is that not only is it impact the board, it's one of the very few cards that's extremely versatile to do, not only do that. Coach needs to not only command and seize the board, but have to deal with the fact that KranicH might be able to reload and go for more pressure.
And looking at Lifecoach's hand, I mean, yes, he could technically has on board, and yeah, you could even silence the Shredder, but the Shredder trades so well into the Keeper of the Grove. It's a bad situation. You have to basically decide which is the least poor play you can make here.
Sure.
And that happens sometimes, especially in the Druid mirror match.
You also do want to keep the Keeper for the Shade when it gets revealed.
Yes.
So maybe the
his best chance to come back. Because the following turn or squeeze in more.
Oh, wow.
So that gives Lifecoach a slight breathing room, but it's still not very comfortable considering that there's 3 minions, and Savage Roar now becomes 8 damage just off of 1 card.
Plus, KranicH now can just next turn play down the Ancient of Lore. Start drawing those cards. It's a 5/5 body, and that's probably what's more relevant at this. There.
The timing of KranicH using his Shade is really, really good. The Aspirant lives, thereby he can play the Ancient of Lore.
Yes.
So that was a very good attack there.
KranicH has really kind of had.
Lifecoach only has one opportunity to come back into this game, I feel, and that's off of the Pilot Shredder. If something disastrous comes up. He's going to evaluate, though, first, because he still does have Innervate, which allows him a couple
Do you
of
maybe
plays.
play down a Ragnarok or?
A more realistic option is to play.
Well, all of your options are pretty much like you're just hoping for something really, really big. For Lifecoach right now.
Is it time to see what you get from the Shredder?
If your opponent has one
Crack
Savage,
open that Shredder.
Yeah, crack your person up.
It might be time.
If your opponent has one Savage Roar, you most likely it definitely changed since TGT was announced.
80.
The Shade and the Ancient of Lore, thereby giving him a chance to survive.
Piloted Shredder.
Yeah, that is.
Hoping for the Doomsayer.
At the same time, what are you gonna do then?
Hope he drops Swipe off the top and then stabilize.
Yeah. This Drake is probably gonna die.
Well, if it dies, it's 4 damage you're not taking.
That's
so I
true.
Lore number 2.
Let's see if
Devastating.
Oh, cut burst.
Pretty reasonable minion if Druid needs to squeeze an extra mana. Again, this matchup is determined a lot by how much you can use your mana. Assuming that he's like, well, one, my opponent probably didn't have Savage Roar and it killed next drawer, and you're not going to necessarily. I mean, you could Wrath and play Emperor Thorzen, but Ragnaros hitting the Ancient of Lore seems to be the highest priority.
That is. Yeah, react to this.
It is time. Hit the 5/5.
Oh!
Yeah, see? Good Ragnaros.
But now the funny thing is the cut purse is actually.
Well, the cut burst looks pretty maniacal and evil, so I guess it kind of fits.
So funny too, based off the way that works. But he gives him the exact 13 damage. That is. KranicH not gonna miss that. That means.
Being really confident before your match, and then you just come in and win. So. This is no small feat. Like, I'm just kind of making light of it. The Lifecoach is really one of the strongest players.
For whether it's preparation or player skill, I think KranicH has definitely executed very cleanly at the highest level on all those fronts. Well done. Won his first one. Lifecoach is not out just yet. He'll fall to the loser's match. We'll play tomorrow to see if he has another chance to survive.
So for KranicH, the battle's halfway done at this point. He just needs to win one more series, and then, as you said, he gets that trip to BlizzCon. And for Lifecoach, obviously, as I said, incredibly.
Again, it's a repeat from last year. Let's see what he has to say.
Thanks so much, guys. KranicH, great to see you back here at BlizzCon. You're our only returning player this year. So was that your biggest advantage coming into this?
Of course, I'm the one and only player who just came back-to-back here at BlizzCon.
Amazing draws for you and kind of rough hands for your opponent. Tell me about your magic powers.
Well, I don't know. Maybe people might say that I am a lucky guy because like last year. Lucky bastard, and you know that I like it because I just show my ability as a lucky bastard today's match. So, well, I don't know.
Well, congratulations to you. Are moving on, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity.
I really want to say thanks to my Korean fans and other global fans. I'll just show my ability this time, like to get higher position. Okay.
Well, you know, speak with them and understand Hearthstone. But KranicH's English is fantastic for being a native Korean resident.
Great sense of humor too. It's fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, thanks so much, guys, for watching. We do want to give a shout out to our.
And T-Mobile.
My first opponent is LoveCX, and honestly I don't know too much about him. I basically just know what he played in the regional qualifiers.
我的第一个对手是欧萨卡卡，我不算太了解他，但我觉得他可能更擅长的是控制套牌。可能在优势就是
Prepared my lineup well against what he's going to play, so I'm pretty comfortable going into the first match. But I mean, yeah, he's a pretty good player.
那我会说我。
X versus Ostkaka!
About this. This is Frodan, joined by Savitz and Brian Kibler from the casting desk. How are you lovely gentlemen doing?
Doing amazing. We are about to see Ostkaka play
quite a bit during the Archon Team League. And he was a player who did very well